terrorism, threat of stage terror. And then like a beetle grabbing a wasp, he's got you. Pincer attack, fake terror, fake environment. Got you.
Yeah, that's right.
My studio audience likes the analogy.
The indoctrination of children at kindergarten now is terrifying because they're going to grow up to be real staunch enviro-Nazis. And it's you can see it all coming, what's been planned. They always go for the youngsters to train them for their role when they're adults.
Well, you saw these articles in the New York Times and others where I'm glad my 3-year-old and 5-year-old rebuke me for taking a hot bath. I won't anymore. Yes. I'm glad my children are my bosses. So reversing roles with mindless 5-year-old Nazis, literally in red and black uniforms, climate cops. We're not making it up, just storming around, reporting everyone. Oh, it's so good. I mean, how could you make this up, Alan? It's too insane.
Yeah, and George Orwell had that in his book, and you see it in the movie, too, the British version with Richard Burton. Excellent movie.
The Spies.
The children have little uniforms on. They call the adults thought criminals. They're going to report them. This is all here.
And the uniform is red and black, just as it is now in England and the U.S. Red and black uniform, kids running around. By 15, they give them machine guns. We're going to skip this break for Internet listeners. I'm going to let Don finish up in Costa Rica. Here we go. Yeah, folks, you can't make it up. I mean, you can't make it up. It's in the Philadelphia Daily News. 15-year-olds with M16s training for us. We're just screwed. They're going to turn loose mindless hordes of scum, brain-dead, brainwashed, lazy hamburger, eaters, the mainline McDonald's heads, the fluoride heads on us. Because they'll do anything for money, anything for power. I just wish I was down in Costa Rica with Don. Don, finish up your points.
Don dropped off.
Don dropped off. I wanted to hear from Don. But he does have a good idea down there in Costa Rica, Don. Jimmy in Kentucky, fellow thought criminal, I'm sure your children will be reporting you soon because it's part of the home of the free, land of the brave. Go ahead, criminal.
How you doing, Alex?
Oh, I'm realizing that freedom is all sorts of secret police and children spying.
Today's my first day actually getting through. I've tried to call before, so instead of asking a question, I would like to give some information to maybe help people.
Oh, do you have a license to be able to speak and be able to talk? Government wants you to have a license to be able to speak to fellow slaves. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're all right. I got a simple physics test for anybody who does not believe that 9/11 was an inside job. And anybody can do this anywhere. It's simply just grab a quarter and try to stick it in a nickel slot. And if you can get that quarter to fit, then I'll believe the official version of it. Outside of that, I can't see a plane going inside the Pentagon. And consider me, ignorant, but I think that's an easy way to get it across to people. Just figured I'd try to put that out there. Governor Ventura had used a quote from Denzel Washington, talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old, so I'll understand.
Yeah.
I have another quote from Denzel Washington that I liked, and it was in Training Day, and I can't curse, but the craft ain't checkers, it's chess. And it's pretty simple whenever you start to think that way, that they will do whatever they can to win this war.
Well, exactly. You've got these scientists who come up with plans to dumb us down, sterilize us, poison us. They're doing it on record, and the public just can't believe it because it's so horrible. Thanks for the call. Alan Watt comments on that.
That's absolutely true. People suspend their incredulity because they can't imagine it, and they have been trained that the good shepherd there, the boss man, is really different from themselves. He's very altruistic. He's there to help them, and all the scientific elite are there to help them. That's how they've been trained to perceive this. And the trick of the elite is always to convince, the wolf or the shepherd is always to convince the sheep that the interests lay in the same direction as the elite themselves. That's the con game of it. That's the trick of it.
Yeah, that's like the slaves saying, we got to take care of, this here plantation. This here, our plantation. Here we go. We're going live.
Radio Network.
They have trained the public, Alan Watt, as you know, to believe that what they believe is reality, and that the general public is with the elite. And as you were saying, that the general masses well-being is the same well-being of the elite, or that we're all together. we're all going in the same direction. We all have the same interest. And the public's also been trained not to have respect for themselves and to imagine Hollywood people as like gods who float around on clouds and elitist with eggheads and fancy suits on TV no more than they do. When in truth, once you really know what's going on, you watch the eggheads, the experts, they're putting out false disinfo on purpose that isn't even meant to make sense. Alan?
That is true, and with science, they can rationalize anything to an ignorant populace. Yeah.
Let's take more calls here. Let's talk to Dustin in Ohio. Dustin, you're on the air with Alan Watt. Welcome.
Dustin dropped off.
Dustin dropped off. Okay, I see that there. Donna in New Mexico, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Hi, Alan, as well.
Hello.
I'm going to raise a point that never gets raised in terms of the global climate change debate, and it's one that really gets under my skin because I've researched it extensively, and that is heating of the ionosphere using electromagnetic energy from towers from projects such as HAARP. One of many. I think over 60 countries now are heating the ionosphere. And I don't see how we can even have a discussion about climate change and so forth without including this in this quote-unquote debate. The debate itself is polarized. It comes down on two sides. Those who believe in naturally occurring climate change, that's one side, and those who believe in the global warming myth. And it is a myth. There's no doubt about that. It takes you about 5 seconds to figure it out if you look it up. What we see when we experience this ionosphere heating with electromagnetic energy is severe changes in jet stream, increase in volcanics, increase in earthquakes. Now, my understanding is that HAARP went operational approximately sometime right before 2004. And right after that, we had the dramatic earthquake tsunami in Indonesia.
Yeah, let me be specific here. Because you're bringing up a really important point that I have made, but not often enough. In fact, this morning, I was meaning to make this very point, and then you have these thousands of thoughts that never get on air. And then I want you to comment more on it, Donna, and then we'll have Alan comment on it. But it's this. We know the sun was in a particularly hot phase, putting off more heat radiation in the last 30 years. Now, the last few, it's cooled down. The entire solar system is cooling. The ice caps that were receding on Mars are getting larger. Same thing for the moons of Saturn and Jupiter and others. Now, separately from that, they're getting upset that because of the cooling, it's becoming obvious that it's not global warming. So now they're just saying climate change. But then that's very childlike. We're always having climate change. We have seasons. We know we go through hot and cold periods. But you're right. None of that even matters when it's declassified that they're doing thousands of aerosol spraying operations. Just Google it. The government now admits
I'm watching one right now.
Well, I want... Just finishing this thought for folks that don't know what Donna knows, that don't know what Alan knows. I'm just throwing this out because it's so important, and I meant to make the point today, and I'm glad you called in that synchronicity or serendipity, whichever one. The point here is that, just finishing the thought, they are clearly, as Secretary of Defense Cohen said in '97 in Army Times in the April issue, they do have weather weapons. They do have tectonic earthquake weapons. They said it. They admit it. They are manipulating the weather. So finish up your comment, and then I want to get Alan Watt's take on that.
Okay, well, there's a misconception about missile defense shield. The prevailing, what the mainstream puts out there is that missile defense shield are these interceptors which fail 9 times out of 10. And in fact, missile defense shield is pulsed energy, electromagnetic energy into the ionosphere. And I'm leaning toward thinking that the chemtrails that I'm witnessing right now outside my window have something to do with that. So what we have here is this shield of energy being created by antennas such as HAARP, and you say HAARP, and you've got this horrible stigma just like you have when you say chemtrails. But it's a very real thing, and it's impacting everybody, everything, every living organism.
Well, governments admit that they use antennas to manipulate the atmosphere, and that's in thousands, literally thousands of mainstream newspapers have reported on that. China does it, Russia does it. But I mean, the problem is we don't know the full extent of that. We do know that there are thousands of spraying programs going on with aluminum dioxide, with barium salts being added to jet fuel, perfect compartmentalization. The companies don't even know. It's only the three big jet fuel makers that are adding it. Alan Watt comments on this.
It's much bigger even. The HARP technology was used in the 1970s, early 70s from Russia, Riga, in fact, the Soviet system in Latvia. And we find out now there's over 54 of them worldwide. The U.S. has one in, I think, Iceland and one in Greenland as well, as one in Alaska, and they have one in Australia in Pine Gap.
Yep.
Now, they can work these in concert with each other. It was in the British papers. They used it in the first Gulf War in Iraq, and it literally affected the minds of the soldiers who were just walking out the desert completely stunned. They hadn't been under bombardment, at least visible bombardment, and yet they were like zombies. So it can affect the mind. Now, the HARP technology, there's no doubt about it. This ties in with technotronic warfare that Brzezinski talked about in his book, Between Two Ages. He says short